Hey guys, this is Andrew Brought of What's Brewing Sports. Thanks so much for listening to us. Before this week's episode, we just wanted to let you guys know that we will be live at the Roost on Broadway Friday, June 7th, recording at 8 p.m. Come out, say hi, buy us a beer, and check us out live. Also, tell your bartender that's what's brewing, and you'll get 10% off your first drink order. So come on out. Take it easy.
What's Brewing Sports?
I think that they're going to be kind of the surprise Cinderella team.
Just defensively, just get incrementally better.
Everybody has lived up and failed expectations.
That's it. The box score is what the box score is. Sucks for them. That's what's going on with the San Antonio Spurs.
That's what's brewing.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of What's Brewing Sports. So we've gone past the 4-month mark on What's Brewing Sports podcast. I'm Richard Oliver, along with Andrew T. Brought. And so, number 17, I bring you Dizzy Dean, Major League Baseball pitcher. I bring you Doug Williams, NFL quarterback for the Washington Redskins, won a Super Bowl. I will bring you Darrell Waltrip, who put 17 on his car. But I'm going to say that number 17 that I will go with this week is John Havlicek, the Celtics guard. And he was, when I was a kid, it seemed like every weekend, of course, back when I was a kid, in the seasoned age that I am now, something you cannot understand or even fathom probably in your whippersnapper years that you were in. We used to have 3 channels.
Three channels.
No cable, no DVR, no VCR, no VHS. We had none of that stuff. So what you got on the weekends was you got the baseball game of the week with Kurt Gowdy on Saturdays, if I remember right. You got Wide World of Sports on Saturday afternoon. And on Sundays, you got the NBA game, whatever it happened to be. When I was a kid, it was John Havlicek of the Celtics. Like every single week, they were the national game. Now, of course, that's back in the '60s. There's no Spurs. There's none of that stuff. We didn't have any of that in South Texas and Corpus Christi where I was growing up. But we had the Boston Celtics, and so that was the age of Dennis Johnson and Havlicek. And so I grew up actually just for a while, just because by necessity you had to be. I was a Celtics fan.
You were a Celtics fan.
And so I used to watch the Celtics. I used to watch the Boston Bruins. Used to see the Yankees would be on Saturday afternoon a lot. And then, of course, when I graduated and got into college, then TBS and cable came on and WGN. But, of course, when we were in college, you'd see the Braves all the time. Because they were the first team that was everywhere. So anyway, this is the John Havlicek edition.
John Havlicek
of What's Brewing Sports. Again, it could be Dizzy Dean, could be Doug Williams. I'll give you any of those. But I'm going with John Havlicek.
I like the Dizzy Dean reference.
I
like the Dizzy Dean reference.
I like the name.
That's good.
Dizzy Dean actually pitched a lot in Texas.
He did pitch a lot in Texas.
Back in the day.
Little known fact, my dad's father, so my grandfather, trained Dizzy Dean out here at Fort Sam. Taught him how to pitch, essentially. Taught him pitching. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was his brother's name?
I don't know that.
Daffy Dean?
Yeah.
It was Dizzy and Daffy. I forget it was something, but he had a brother that also pitched. Yeah, he had a brother that I think also pitched in the major league. Now that was even before my time. That was at the St. Louis Browns days and those kind of stuff.
But Dizzy, I think Dizzy was out here at Fort Sam for a little bit. And my grandfather ran the baseball team or whatever and worked with him on pitching.
I remember now when when you talk about Dizzy Dean, you talk about these guys who came through the barnstorming tours and also the played minor league baseball in Texas. Now, of course, everyone knows that the Missions used to be the Dodgers, major league affiliate, or however you want to say that. And so you'd have guys like Steve Sachs, Fernando Valenzuela, Mike Scioscia. All these guys would come through San Antonio in Double-A baseball on their way to the Dodgers. So, there was a long period there where they used to play at VJ Keefe Field over at St. Mary's and everything. But when Corpus Christi had a minor league team back in the 50s and 60s, I believe they were the Giants or something like that back in the day. But players like Gaylord Perry used to come through there, and Joe Morgan also played in Corpus Christi a lot. And in fact, in Joe Morgan's Hall of Fame speech, which is kind of a notorious thing for Corpus Christi, but he talked about playing in Corpus Christi and being a black player in the minor leagues and having to eat on the back step of the restaurant.
Wow.
While his teammates ate inside. But he talked about that as a memory of playing in South Texas back in the days, back in the 50s, maybe early 60s. So that's anyway, John Havlicek. That's what I'm going with. But I will go with Dizzy Dean as our number 17 show. We could do that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I like the choice.
Because you always like to talk hockey. Every once in a while you'll throw hockey at me.
I will.
I'm a little weak on hockey. So,
right.
But I think Yari Curry, who was the famous player back in the day, I think he also was number 17 in the NHL. Yeah. So I think I remember that too as well. So I can keep going. Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth, the NASCAR driver, also had 17.
All right. Nonetheless, we are in episode 17.
And by the way, I remember when I was 17 back in Corpus Christi.
Right. And 17 candles and 17 and 17. And...
Okay, I don't know. Anyway, carry on.
Right on. Well, welcome back. I'm feeling much better.
Yeah, you were a big snot ball.
Oh, my God. It was terrible. I mean, I still am, but... sad to say, I've gotten my regular voice back. The sultriness
has left the building. Sultriness has left the building. No, man. Everybody, this course, San Antonio, anybody that lives in Central Texas, this time of year, everything is blooming.
Yeah.
Everything.
Right.
So good. The good part is everything's blooming. Looks beautiful.
That's right.
Warm weather's here, but the bad thing is it's all blowing up your nose.
That's
all
right.
that,
and then back out again.
The pollen is just happening, so it's just not very pretty. All right, what do we got today, Chief? What do you got?
Well, we got a couple things, but let's check in. So, how's Gary doing?
Yes, we talked about it last week. Gary DeLon, our great friend, the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, San Antonio Sports Hall of Famer, Kins TV veteran. Everyone knows Gary DeLon in San Antonio. Had a pacemaker installed last week.
Right.
So went to see him today as we sit here. Went and talked to him. Brought him a chocolate milkshake. So he was rocking and rolling.
I bet.
He flirted with my wife Laura. So I know he's feeling okay. I know Gary's feeling good because he. But yeah, no. I'm glad you brought that up. Gary's doing great, and he's. I could tell he had his color back and he had his humor back. And when we walked in, he's at a little rehabilitation center. So when we walked in, went around the corner, and I could hear him before I went around the corner.
You could.
And there's, the attendants, the nurse, and one of the attendants, everything. And they're right there, and he's just telling them stories. He's got story after story. And what's funny when he talks about, a lot of stuff, he'll tell stories, and he'll talk about actresses like Kim Novak.
Sure.
And, Sandra Dee and, all these. And you see these young nurses and stuff like, yeah.
Right.
Kim Novak. Yeah. What was it? They have no idea.
They have no idea.
But the man's been places. He's seen some things, so but it was fun. As long as he's telling stories.
That's right.
He's doing okay.
That's right.
So he's telling stories.
So the pacemaker is doing his thing, huh?
And we'll have him with us. We're going to have him with us to talk about some other stuff because, Gary DeLon, a famous guy, man. He was the voice of the Astrodome for 4 years,
Wow.
Yeah, he called the first segregated football or desegregated football game in Houston back in the 60s, 70s. I forget one of the somewhere around in there. Just different things that he's been through and seen, and certainly on the sports thing. 57 years of doing high school games on radio.
Wow.
Football games.
That's
57, crazy. Almost 6 decades.
Right.
Of doing high school football games on radio. Now that's a guy who's seen a lot of action.
Yeah,
for
so sure.
He knew who Johnny Manziel was going to be before Manziel became Manziel. Before we were all calling him Manziel.
Right. And again, it's crazy to think he could still recall almost every nuance of those last 60 years.
Yeah, he's astounding.
There's stats, everything. I mean, it's still with him.
Mm-hmm.
I barely remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
And he's telling us
this guy is telling you what he had for breakfast 60 years ago, and It's just remarkable.
Yeah,
to say the least.
So
it's tight
Gary's,
to minds.
I'm glad you said that. Gary's doing great. We'll have him on. We're going to talk a little bit of sports with him at some point very soon. And one of the great things about Gary right now is he's putting all of his stuff down on paper. He's a lot of those memories you're talking about, the recollections he's had, and all those different things. He's writing a book, and he's putting it all together, all of his memoirs. And this is a guy who's got memoirs. I mean, he's really got stories to tell. So I look forward to helping him. We're doing a lot of reading and going over a lot of different stuff. And man, I tell you, the more I learn about this guy, the more I'm really happy he's got that pacemaker and he's still going strong.
Right. So. Well, speaking of Rocket Gary DeLon, how about John Wick 3?
Oh my gosh, man, I saw it. You talk about a turbocharged movie.
No kidding.
I saw that. You guys saw it a couple days ago.
Yeah.
My lovely bride and I saw it today. Now, I'm a John Wick fan. I like stylistic violence like that because
that's right.
In my mind, it's cartoon, it's comic book stuff. The bad guys deserve what they get.
Yes.
So, it's a video game.
Right.
But the thing you and I talked about John Wick, about Jason Bourne movies, even the Fallen movie, Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, the new one that's coming out.
Gerard Butler.
But in particular, the Bourne movie, and in particular this John Wick movie, I've read a lot about Keanu Reeves, and I know now the guy's not he's not the strongest, most dramatic actor you'll ever see. He's not going to do Shakespeare for you.
A lot of range.
No, I'm not going to do Shakespeare for you. Not a vocal ability there. But I tell you, you and I were talking about the idea of doing a movie like the John Wick movies. It's as one critic said, it's ballet violence.
Right.
And there is a scene in John Wick 3 that as I was watching it, a single track camera scene where there's a fight, and you saw it too, where they're in a corridor and there's knives and just these sharp instruments behind these glass panels, and they break the panels and they're throwing the knives at each other and they're doing all this stuff. And I thought as I watched it, number one, the choreography of this just staggers me. How long it must take to go through this stuff and have an actor, God bless him. Again, he's not going to win an Oscar. We know that. But to have an actor who physically can go through the motions, go through the steps the exact way that he does, and I know maybe there's some CGI involved. I don't know, but I just thought that was an amazing sequence.
Yeah.
I just thought as action scenes go, and we could talk about Boban being in the movie. He right off the bat. I don't spoiler attack. He's in the movie right off the bat, but and he's actually very good.
Yeah, he is.
But that fight scene, Andrew, I thought was absolutely spectacular.
It is. It's interesting. I go back and I think about the movies that I grew up with. Of course, my dad was an older guy, so I got the Dirty Dozen.
Yep.
When
Magnum
I was younger.
Force,
yes, of course. And then I got all the Bruce Willis movies, and all of the Arnold Schwarzenegger
and you still
movies.
Die Hard still.
Oh, it's
a very special place in your heart. I know
very
that.
Near and dear,
yes,
for sure. Yeah,
so.
It's my favorite Christmas movie. And
now Bruce Willis says it's not a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie.
We'll have to have as we get closer to the holidays.
Even the producers say it's a Christmas movie.
It's whatever you want it to be. If it brings you Christmas cheer, it's a Christmas movie.
That's right. It's my favorite movie to sit down with a glass of eggnog and a cookie and just think about life.
That's right. It's heartwarming. It's
and dying hard, right?
That's right. To watch.
Oh my God!
Then you see Alan Rickman fall off.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. But you think about how action has transcended over the years. In those movies, it used to be about the explosions and about these things, and now it's gotten very surgical,
right?
With the fighting, and you talk about the choreography, which is incredible, and I think about that just in somebody has to logistically look at a space and say, okay, what can we do, and then for how long do we have to do it,
right?
But then you think about they have gotten longer, these scenes, and it's not enough to just think about it. Somebody has to execute it. And now you're getting, and you saw the same thing with the Bourne movies. You're getting the actors they're hungry to participate. They don't want to use stunt doubles. They want to be in the scene.
Right.
And so they're training for months and months and months at a time. You look at Keanu Reeves, he's going to like special ops gun school training, and all different types of karate and martial arts, which of course I think he is already a specialist of
Yes,
a
he
few.
is. Yeah.
I think jiu-jitsu or something, but he continues, he learns all these different styles, and I don't know that there's very much ad-libbing, but the more of those styles that he knows, the more he's naturally able to pull them off and pull them out of his bag of tricks.
Right.
Essentially. And so, I mean, it does. Now when you go watch these movies, it's so realistic because they're doing it.
Right.
I mean, it's what you see is what you get.
Right.
And it's really cool to see the evolution and how far we've come from just shooting a tank from 100 yards out and blowing stuff
Chuck
up.
Norris, with a machine gun, which you always see those famous scenes like in whatever the Chuck Norris movies when he's saving the missing in action movies.
Yeah.
And he'd be like in a courtyard and there'd be like 50 people firing at him. And he'd always have the two machine guns and he's like, boom, 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 shooting, and they're all falling off the building. And,
That's right.
And none of them are hitting him.
None of them
all the machine guns are all firing at him, and
That's
he's
right.
just like, "I'm Chuck Norris. You can't kill me." but here's what's interesting about it, and the reason we're bringing this up is what the show, our podcast is What's Brewing Sports, but I will bring it up from a sports perspective, from an athletic perspective.
Sure.
I just think, and I would go back to Matt Damon talking about it. Doing the Bourne movies and how taxing it was,
Right.
that you have to really do. It's very, and the fight scenes in the Bourne movie were the first time I saw fight scenes. The one, I guess, in the second movie where they're in the shower, and it's the first time I've seen martial arts. So there is an actual martial arts technique for close infighting,
Right.
And to see it like that, to see when them going through all that kind of stuff, and those guys were bruising each other pretty good, and all the different stuff. Or the first movie where where it was a great perspective that Matt Damon said, when you study these guys who are in these kind of fight scenes or who are in martial arts or anything, they teach you grab whatever you need to grab.
Right.
You fight with whatever is near to you.
Right.
In his case, it was a rolled up magazine, and it was whatever he could
pin.
find, a pin, or something like that. And I thought that was very interesting in this movie, the third John Wick movie. Kind of reminded me of, and maybe because there was a lot of infighting like that and everything, it kind of reminded me of what Jackie Chan was really.
Sure.
Because I always thought Jackie Chan was remarkable because now the difference was I think this was a little more realistic, obviously, a little more bloody and a little more. Jackie Chan really was kind of comic book.
Right.
Although the fights were remarkable and athletic and, he was sliding through
And he
little
did
spaces.
all of his own stunts.
And did all his own
Yeah.
stunts and banged himself up and all kinds of stuff. But John Wick 3 in particular, and again, we're not talking about Oscars here. No, we're just talking about sheer physicality and enjoyment of seeing this.
Which I
movie.
think there should be some kind of, specialized award for a category for
ballet
because,
violence.
I mean, it is becoming its
action
own
choreography.
Yeah, exactly.
But the scenes, John Wick 3, you talked about Keanu Reeves has a background in martial arts. But there was a lot of that in this movie. Yeah. It wasn't like, you remember in the second movie, he just shot everybody in the head.
That's right.
He just ran bam, 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 and I'm getting there. And he had some fight scenes. He and Common had that great battle on the subway and all that kind of stuff in the second movie. But this third one was a lot of martial arts, a lot of infighting, and a lot of, just really getting into it. And I just thought from an athletic perspective, from somebody who's watched athletics,
right.
Good Lord. I mean, those guys were really going after it. And I just love the fact that they just, I kept telling my wife, Laura's just sitting there going, shut up. Let's watch this movie. She said, the choreography of this is ridiculous.
It is.
This had to be months of going through this.
And think about that too. You talk about how, it seems like there were definitely a lot of shots where it was like one long shot. Right.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't do one take. How many takes do you think they did of that thing?
To make it just
think
right.
about that. Like having to go through all that, and then you're huffing and puffing, and they say, "Okay, let's do it again." And
right. And what's
okay.
interesting, and Ryan called it. My son called and said, the one thing he said it's just what you think that all these movies. There'll be like five guys, and they come at you one at a time.
Yeah, right.
So, that's the one thing that everyone always says, okay, and that's true. I mean, you see a lot of that stuff like that. But just to say, okay, actor A or stuntman A, you point A to point B, and you're going to flip over to C. Then you're going to go D. Okay, here come actor 2. You're going to come in here, point A, blah, 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 blah. But, here's this. And then Keanu Reeves in the middle of it saying, I've got to be here, then I've got to here, I'm going to flip you here, then we're going to do this over here. And I just, and I know there's choreography and everything, Rocky movies. You just saw the awful boxing movies where, he'd be like a foot away, the swing would be a foot away and he'd, catapult over the ropes, that kind of stuff. So, it's still Hollywood, and I understand that, but man, I was wowed by that movie just from the physicality.
That's right.
If you just go to watch a movie just to see an actor kind of getting it done from that perspective, I like that movie.
Yeah. No, it's pure action porn. That's for sure.
It is. That's a good way to put it. And it's absolutely athletics.
Oh my gosh,
it really is. I'm looking forward to seeing. I would love to have seen, and we saw it. Now we bring up Boban, who was actually very good in the very first scene.
Yeah.
His spoiler alert, doesn't end well for Boban.
He's not in it long.
It's not going to be.
He didn't make it to the credits.
He's not in the long track scene we were talking about, but he does right away, gives you that great that great scene right away that said, oh, this is going to be a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
This is going to get after it a little bit. It reminded me a little bit when he was going up against, he's like 2 feet taller, 2.5 feet taller than which he is in real life anyway. He's so taller than anybody.
Right.
But do you remember back when the James Bond movies back in the 70s, when Roger Moore used to be the guy, the James Bond, and then even then back then it was just really Star Wars days and all that kind of stuff, just stupid stuff. Now that you look back compared to like Daniel Craig and those kind of scenes, but they had an actor named Richard Kiel who played Jaws. Mm-hmm. In the actor, you remember him? He was this big, giant guy.
That's right.
And it reminded me, when I first saw him, I said, this is what that's kind of reminds me of.
Right.
And then the last thing I'll say is that there's a great Matrix reference.
That's right.
In John Wick 3 that a lot of people have missed.
That's right.
But at the end of the movie, again, a spoiler alert, Keanu Reeves says to Winston, the guy that runs the hotel in New York, says, the guy tells Keanu Reeves, John Wick, what do you need? Guns, lots of guns. Just like the Matrix, and you can just see all the people around me like, oh, I see it. So anyway, good movie. I gave it a good solid B+.
Yeah, sure.
Just because some of it was a little unbelievable, I thought.
Just a hair. Just a hair.
Yeah, just the end of it just seemed a little unbelievable to me. But
that's right. That's right.
This guy. It's clear that John Wick cannot be killed.
No.
It is clear this man just is Teflon.
You know what I like too? I like the Gothic novel coloration to this thing.
It was actually very pretty in scenes,
Yeah.
The blood spewing was just beautiful against the swirling yellow and
they brought in the operatic choir with the blood and the slow motion.
Kind of a Blade Runner feel in parts, Yeah, I liked it. I like that. It was just when I go to those movies, I'm not looking to solve world peace at all. There's no big dilemma there other than that's a good guy, that's a bad guy.
That's right.
No, it's because I think they kill about 150 people in this movie.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's worse than, remember we used to add up Taken, and Liam Neeson goes overseas and kills all the Serbians, and you think there was I think we counted up 57, 58, I forget what it was, the body count, but this one's got to be a record.
It's definitely got to be over 100.
Yeah, and there was no because it wasn't a matter of blowing up a building or something.
Right.
This was seriously killing
one at a time, just very fast.
Yeah, some of them just Halle Berry gets into it. She's just, so it's. We need to start doing a little more movie reviews here on What's Brewing. We got. We'll judge them by the athletics part of it.
That's right. Right.
It's not 50 Shades of Grey stuff, but it's
how much fun it is to talk about it afterwards.
Exactly. Anyway, good movie.
It is a good movie. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and put a pin on that? Let's move on to this week's brew topic.
And by the way, speaking of John Wick.
Here we go.
Speaking of John Wick, don't you watch movies like that and think, I'd like to insert a few people in as villains in this movie?
Sure. Yeah. It's
there
very
are certain
cathartic.
Politicians and, people you just work along or have seen that you just don't.
Just superimpose their face on somebody.
You know what? That Ted would look good with a knife in his forehead. You know,
that's right. That's right.
I'm just saying.
Ted from work. Just.
And there's that great meme that's out this week that has Liam Neeson saying, "I have a certain set of skills," and who is this? He goes, "John Wick," and Liam Neeson says, "Oh, never mind."
That's right.
Never mind. Anyway, I'm just saying it. I just feel like there's some people I could put into those movies, and we could just take care of.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Anyway, go ahead. Whatever you're going to say. Whatever. Keep going.
Are we ready to move on with the show?
Move on from my catharsis here.
I can think of somebody I'd like to input in that into the action right now.
The IRS. Somebody from the IRS, perhaps.
All right. Moving on.
If Speaking of putting a pin into somebody.
That's right. That's exactly right. Today's brew topic.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
Oh my gosh! So you actually reached out to me a couple days ago because it came across your timeline or something?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I'd come across this wonderful Jim Beam bourbon flavored coffee. Not only that, Jim Beam bourbon flavored coffee in 5 different flavors.
5 different flavors. That's right.
So it's on wideopeneats.com, and it came up, and I checked. I remembered it. I never did it, never bought it. But we do love our coffee. And every once in a while we do love our Jim Beam. Sometimes Jim Beam in stuff,
That's right.
So, by the way, John Wick, a bourbon guy. Anyway, this was Wide Open Eats, and Andrew, I looked it up, and it's still there. It's still on the website under lifestyle. Under the lifestyle heading, mornings just got better. Jim Beam introduces bourbon-flavored coffee. So this is from 2 years ago. May 22nd, they introduced it, 2017. So it's 2 years ago, almost to the day. And it's a growing trend uniting the whiskey and coffee industry, which I didn't know this.
Right.
Jim Beam caught the bug, or bean, and decided to get in on the action, making mornings a whole lot better. Jim Beam has partnered with an NYC-based coffee company, White Coffee, to bring us Jim Beam coffee.
That's right.
So that's on What's Brewing Sports. We like to bring up our brew of the week, our ideas.
Right.
That's the one I throw out there.
Yeah. No, that's great. So. We have to get a hold of some of this stuff.
We do.
We need to find. Do you have to order it online, or do you think somebody sells it here?
I'm guessing we could get it online.
I wonder if somebody would know that. If somebody would reach out to us and let us know that, hey, actually, I've seen that. It's at the so and so store or whatever. You know what? I've never seen it at HEB, so I'm imagining you have to go to some kind of specialty shop.
It says the Jim Beam coffees were set to hit the stores in America later this summer, which is 2017. And if you can't wait that long, then order yourself some I'm looking here on the website. And again, this is on wideopeneats.com was the story. And we will investigate that and make sure we post that, because it just looks absolutely delicious. And I think that's something that we could all get in on.
I think so too.
I'm all for that. And by the way, they want to clarify it's non-alcoholic.
Right.
Beans.
Right.
So, thank God. They've got to clarify that, just non-alcoholic coffee beans.
That's right. I wonder if they ever mess up and accidentally slip the alcoholic beans in there.
Yeah, that's really, but that's a good way to start your day.
That's a great way to start.
We have a couple of Jim Beam coffees, and we're good to go.
As all of a sudden, Ted's not such a bad guy.
Now, you've got yourself something special today, too.
Yeah, I thought I went out, and Alamo Brewery has been pretty active lately on Instagram. And they've got like a whole line of stuff that they've started to release recently. And this is part of that line. This one in particular is the Luna Blanca White. And this is their Belgian style wheat beer. Mm-hmm. It's pretty good, actually. It's not as heavy on like the orange and the coriander as, say, a Blue Moon or the other heavier types of Belgian styles that you're used to.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's light, refreshing. It's a great summer beer, which I'm sure is why they released it. We were just out in the pool. Actually, it was a great pool beer.
Yep.
So I'll probably pick up a couple more of these. throughout the summer.
And did you bring over this real ale that I'm drinking?
I did, yeah. We talked about that
a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Real ale Scotch ale, a real heavy, Real Ale Brewing Company, real heavy Scotch ale. That's what I'm kind of taking on right now, and it's very good.
Yeah, it is.
Has a little kick to it.
It does. Yeah. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. So I really do, though. I'm really interested now in this Jim Beam coffee. So we are really gonna have to do some research.
We're gonna research.
We have to get this thing on here
because
on the show.
we are here for you.
That's right,
dear
that's
listeners.
Right, that's right.
We are here. We go out on the limb. We take those challenges.
We'll do the research.
Yeah,
we'll put ourselves on the front lines for the betterment of your taste buds.
It's what we do.
That's
and
right.
It's what we're all about.
That's
so
right.
We're kind of the Gandhis in that. We're kind of the Gandhis of
right.
of beer and coffee experimentation.
I guess
sacrificing.
That's right.
Sacrificing.
That's right.
That's
That's right. Well, you know what? With that's what's brewing.
That is what's brewing. Indeed so. Now, also, what's brewing is a lot of stuff's been going on over the last few weeks. And before we get into the NBA Finals, because that's coming up now, it's set. Milwaukee knocked off by Toronto, which Milwaukee was my pick.
It was my pick, too.
I thought the Bucks were going to win it all. And
I did.
so Kawhi Leonard made sure that wasn't going to be the case. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But real quick, I just want to tell you, the Texas Rangers, now you've got to give me credit. 4 months ago, when this season was just starting, the show was just starting, I said the surprise team in baseball, in the American League at least, was going to be the Texas Rangers.
You did, yeah.
And a lot of people were laughing at me. A lot of people, like my buddies, were just saying, because the Rangers, they're not forecast to be very good. Their pitching stinks, and they're just awful. I say all that despite an awful loss today. The Rangers absolutely stunk it up today with a loss, losing today in Texas Rangers fashion on back-to-back wild pitches that scored runs, including the winning run, and they lose. I forget that they're playing the Angels or somebody. I forget some no-name team, Toronto. I don't know, but the Rangers have been really hot. And
right.
So in the American League West, the Astros are they're banged up. They all of a sudden, the Astros have 4 guys on the injured list, including George Springer, Jose Altuve, their backup catcher, Max Stassi, and today Alindis Diaz goes on the injured list with a hamstring problem. They've had a lot of hamstring problems, which I think the trainers need to have a little discussion with the trainers here. But that said, the Astros still in first place in the American League West. So I'm not saying they're getting challenged just yet. But the A's are playing great baseball. But the Rangers have been playing really fine baseball. And I'm telling you, they're going to be a spoiler. Now, they're not as good as the Astros. But they're only a half game out of the wild card right now in the American League. And so I look at that team and I think, despite the fact the pitching is not very good, their hitting has been outstanding. With Joey Gallo, they've got Odor, they've got Elvis Andrus at shortstop. I mean, they've got some guys that you recognize and are great players. So we talk a lot about the Astros on this show because I like the Astros and frankly they may be the best team in baseball, so it's worth talking about. But I love what the Rangers are doing.
Yeah,
I mean they're playing scrappy baseball, and the reason I love that, they've got a manager, Chris Woodward. They just got him from the Dodgers system. The Dodgers are great this year again. So he's come in with that expectation of winning. He's come in with an expectation. I've come from a place, I know how it works. I know how to instill that attitude in the locker room. And I liked him when he came through San Antonio. I liked his attitude. I liked the way he talked. I liked his forecast of what I want to do with this team. And he's doing it. I mean, the Rangers are playing inspired baseball, and they're playing good baseball. Now, you could be inspired and play well all day long, defensively and offensively, but if your pitching stinks, it's going to stink.
Sure.
And there's just no way around that. So what I'm going to find interesting, though, is if you're a Rangers fan, are they for real enough that we get into July? There's a different trading deadline this year. There's no trade in August that, let's get this trade done right before the playoffs to have somebody eligible for the playoffs.
Right.
Now you're going to trade in July, and that's the only trading deadline. So would the Rangers, if they were still within shouting distance of a wild card spot in the American League, would they go trade for some pitching?
Right.
And try to make a difference that way. So
sure.
I think along with Tampa Bay, I think the Rangers are the biggest surprise to me in the American League.
Yeah. Well, you got to think if you had any shot. I mean, because there's still a lot of games left.
Oh, there's a lot. We're only past the quarter pole.
Right. So we're basic. Well, no, we have another month, I guess. When is it in July? Is it the beginning or the end of July?
Third week.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like the end. I mean, still, you got to think. I mean, who wouldn't trade for that? Who wouldn't try to heal that situation so that you had a better shot?
Right.
Because as we've seen, certainly, I think we've seen it in baseball, but certainly even as basketball has shown, once you get into the postseason, which is the real covet anyway, who cares about the regular season? You're just trying to get at the postseason.
Yeah, it's the same in the NBA.
Right.
Seedings don't mean a whole lot.
Right.
It's home field means something, obviously, but I don't know. I just like the way the Rangers are playing. I think that's going to be one of those things where they might. Theoretically, this is all theoretically, because realistically, with that pitching, they're not going to go very far. They're not.
Right.
I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but theoretically, they kind of scrap their way to. They're done with the Astros for a while. They've already played the Astros. The Astros have played them pretty well. I think the Rangers could be a spoiler if nothing else, and I think looking ahead, they might get up on their hind legs and battle some people. So I like that team in that sense. And the reason I bring this up is I like a team like that who is forecast to not be very good. They're not going to be great, but not be very good. But man, they're going to come out there every day and just fight you.
Right.
And that's what the Rangers are. They're going to be that team. They're going to get knocked down, but they're going to get right back up and take their swings.
Right.
So I give Chris Woodward credit. I knew it when they hired him. I said, this guy's going to make a difference, and he really has.
Yeah, I know that they were really excited about him coming into the season.
Yeah,
for sure. So that's cool to see. It'll be interesting to see how that translates later on.
If it translates. But yeah, hey, speaking of the Astros, they've lost or they beat the Red Sox 2 out of 3 in Boston. They beat them 2 out of 3 in Houston. So they did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
Going into a big 3-game series now against the Cubs, who are playing really good baseball, powerful baseball, record-setting power baseball. Again, they've got some pitching issues, but the Cubs are playing some pretty good long ball, and then now they come to Minute Maid where you can hit some balls out. So the Astros are scuffling offensively, but a lot of it again is they're just not healthy. So that's always an issue for them. But they've done, and that's the thing about the Astros. The pitching is so good that if they get just enough offense, they're going to win. They get just enough offense. The one game they lost against the Red Sox, they lose 4-1. Verlander throws very well, but they lose 4-1. They have a couple of errors. They make a couple of mistakes, and they can't hit. They're just having a hard time hitting. So, in those kind of situations, you score, you win.
Right.
Because the Astros pitching is so good, it's not going to be surrendering a whole lot. So.
Right.
Anyway, that's our baseball part of this. But I wanted to give myself a pat on the back without tearing my shoulder apart here. But just listen, the Rangers, maybe just keep an eye on them.
Still holding up.
Yeah, they're staying in the race, and the American League is a scrap this year. There's a lot of teams beating up on each other, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch where everybody is at the midpoint of the season.
Right. Yeah, well, it is a lot of fun. We look forward to looking to that.
Right.
And we still need to get out to
we've got plans. We've got plans, and we've got other plans to talk about too. Because What's Brewing Sports is going to be getting away from the kitchen table.
That's right. That's right. Getting a little less casual.
That's right. We got plans.
Although we don't get much more,
no,
than this. This is pretty much it.
And this ain't very formal.
This is about as formal as it gets. Maybe some longer sleeves.
Well, the places we're going, including likely Minute Maid Park and some other places here in San Antonio, are going to require us to wear long pants.
Long pants.
Probably.
That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
And shoes. I guess we'll have to wear shoes.
Damn it.
Well, sandals, right? It's the summer. Well, right before we came on, you had made an interesting discovery. Apparently, Uncle Dennis had come out and reared his pleasant face.
His ugly head. Yeah, Uncle Dennis.
To the public, and apparently spewed some more knowledge about the Kawhi Leonard situation here in San Antonio.
Yeah, so Uncle Dennis, of course, already a villain in San Antonio, talked to Yahoo Sports. Now, by the time you listen to this podcast, this will have spread everywhere.
Sure.
Obviously, it's already inflaming social media. The discussion basically kind of confirms what a lot of people thought, was that the Kawhi Leonard camp felt that the Spurs had given short shrift to his claim that he was hurt last year with the leg injury, with the tendon problem he had in his leg. He felt like the Spurs, and it had been reported, the Spurs doctors and other doctors had said he's healthy enough to play. He said, I'm in pain, I can't play. That, of course, created a rift with the Spurs franchise. When your doctor, David Schmidt, a decorated doctor, who has gotten Manu back on the court time and again, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, who had a very serious injury, was able to come back and play.
Very similar
to Kawhi. But Kawhi said, I can't play and I can't do it. Now, the reason this conversation becomes really notable right now, and Dennis Robertson, the uncle of Kawhi, who's kind of been his Svengali in the background, and kind of said because of the schism, the chasm between the Spurs and Kawhi's camp over this injury. And again, we kind of suspected this was the case, but Robertson now talking about it, Uncle Dennis, that was the problem for the Spurs in keeping Kawhi. Kawhi, at that point, they felt we can't play here anymore. Now, I don't know what the truth is between that, but it's not a surprise to me. That's exactly what we felt had happened. The aggravation, of course, is that Kawhi's playing so well.
Right.
I mean, Kawhi's playing MVP basketball right now, and he's got the Toronto Raptors in the NBA Finals. And he has been unstoppable in the postseason. So for those of us who are Spurs fans who've been watching this, you're thinking, this should be us.
Right.
This should be what we had expected to be here in San Antonio. Him leaving has knocked us back.
Right.
It's knocked us back quite a bit, actually, from where we felt like we would be at this point. So it's an interesting conversation, Andrew, because when you talk about Kawhi and his impact to the league and what Toronto gambled on him that he was going to be the player that he had been 2, 3, 4 years ago, and he has been. He's been absolutely outstanding. So I'd be interested to see what you think about this, but I know in the national media perspective, because Kawhi's playing so well, the Spurs are not going to look very good in all this.
Right.
It's a shame because David Schmidt's a really good guy and he's a great doctor. And he's been a great doctor for the Spurs. He's been a great team physician. The Spurs have operated at a very high level, professional level for a long time. They're going to be painted in a bad light by this unfairly. And it was interesting, even Snoop Dogg weighed in last week saying he talked to Kawhi, and Kawhi said he was, treated poorly in San Antonio and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think it's just one of those things because he's so good, because he's playing so well, because he's healthy this year. It adds credence to anything he might say because the Spurs are not going to say anything. Right. They're not going to defend themselves at all. They're not going to come out and say, hey, other than say, good luck. I hope he does well.
Right.
Because that's the way they are.
Yeah. I think it's interesting in that way, the media and he's playing himself. I mean, he's playing the basketball that we've all come to know that he could play. It's funny you mentioned, I think the last episode you were talking about how he's kind of been a revelation for people, but he's been around for 6 or 7 years.
Right.
And, for us, he was a revelation 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
We knew what he was, which is why we were all so hurt by the situation and him leaving. But, the other thing that the media knows, besides a player and that this is NBA and, players are relatively, they're put in a lot of adult situations, but I don't know that they're always equipped to be there kind of, scenarios. They're younger. Their experience is only so far as what they're exposed to. So especially like if you got into the NBA younger, you don't know anything. And let's say you came from a power, top 25 basketball team, you've been coddled since you were 18, maybe even younger.
Yeah.
So you don't really have a lot of life experience. It's kind of like the adage that, the difference between somebody who was a bit more blue collar and comes up, and so they tip better, as opposed to somebody who's kind of born into wealth and doesn't understand the value or what's that person's doing that's waiting tables on you, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I feel like the media has somewhat of an awareness of that. And I'd say that all of that is to say that, you look at Greg Popovich and you look at this Spurs organization, and if you've paid attention at all, then you know what kind of organization this is.
Right.
So you really, I don't know how much of this you take to heart and how much of it you take with a grain of salt, because there's something fishy. It doesn't add up with the organization in question.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't. Yeah. Greg Popovich is we just know he's not that guy. ESPN just released this whole thing about how wonderful Greg Popovich is off the court.
Right.
The man and the myth besides the legend. But we don't even have to say the legend. He's already proven that on the court. So, and then there's the former players and the types of players that are former players, the kind of all-star and the kind of caliber of players and people that they are. So you look at all that and you say, well, we have all of this and we have this one guy. It's really hard to knock all of that down or to forget all of that based on this one guy's experience that we still don't really understand. You got your feelings hurt because somebody said you were probably okay to play. Right now we're really talking about emotions. We're not even talking about physicality anymore. He didn't feel like you know what I'm saying? I feel like we're talking like some psychology or something, like he, he just wasn't mentally ready. Like he was still shocked or rocked for the first time in his life that he got an injury, or I don't know. I don't know what was going on there.
And a couple of weeks ago we had Sean Elliott on, and Sean Elliott talked, at that time talked about, look, there's some people that almost to Sean's point, there's some players that San Antonio's not for them.
Right.
So was that an excuse? Where they forced their way out of here because they just don't want to be in San Antonio?
Right.
That's one thing, but the other thing is that you talked about that even his sister was kind of apparently overheard saying that the people in Toronto, it is almost sad for us as Spurs fans to watch on social media as these people from Toronto have fallen in love with this guy,
right? And
how he loves Toronto and he'll never leave, and because why would he ever leave this kind of adoration, and they had a picture of him, and I even put something on social media about it because it was just hilarious.
Yeah.
Why would he leave this? We have a poster of him on the side of a building. and we're like, God, wake up, you people. He is not staying in Toronto.
Yeah.
He's not.
No.
He's going to LA. One way or the other, he's going to be in LA. This guy has ulterior motives. And listen, Kawhi Leonard is just a blunt force weapon. That's all he is. And he's surrounded by people telling him what to do.
Right.
Now, I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know this for sure, but I sure observe things from afar. And here's Uncle Dennis, and here's his sister, and here's everybody talking for him. And you listen to him in interviews, and he's a one-track guy.
Yeah.
And so I just look at that kind of stuff, and I think this is a guy who is kind of going where he's told to go, doing what he's told to do. And going out there and has merged into the superstar thanks to the Spurs.
Right.
And the other part of this whole thing is the irritation is kind of what we touched on last week, is why people around the country are acting like he's a revelation.
Yeah.
Like this guy's just come out of. You just see the undercurrent of it when you read the articles, when you listen to the guys on TV and you look at all this stuff, and they're like, this is his breakout year. The man was the MVP of the NBA Finals in 2014. What are you talking
against
about?
Miami, the Miami team.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like, you came out of this, like he came out of the AAA,
right. Yeah,
and became a major league player,
right?
When he went to Toronto,
right?
He's in Toronto. He's not in Los Angeles. He's not in New York. He's not in Chicago. He's not like, okay. I might understand it if he'd stepped out of San Antonio, where like Sean Elliott will tell you, look, there's some players who just don't thrive in this kind of a situation.
Right.
Although Kawhi did just fine, and goes to and let's just say he went to L.A. and basked in that. And like Sean also said, listen, guys said that, in New York, if they played in New York, they'd be 20% better.
That's right.
Just because they're in New York.
That's right.
They'd be perceived as being better. So if Kawhi Leonard's playing in New York, leaving San Antonio for New York, if he was that kind of player, if that's important to him, then I'll say, okay, I can understand. I'm in ESPN's backyard. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in New York. I'm in the media capital of the world. Yeah, okay. You're going to get a little more attention. I understand that. He's in Toronto.
Right.
He's playing for the Raptors in another country.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's no revelation to be had here.
Right.
This is the same guy.
Right.
So I don't know. That just irritates me.
I think it's interesting. You talk about how he's just kind of a blunt force object, and I agree. I do have to go back on what I was saying, I think, last week, which is not the pick, although I don't regret the pick. I still wish the Bucks won. I still believed in the Bucks. They let me down, whatever. The thing that I have to go back on is that I insinuated that he was kind of stepping into this like leadership type of role, that he was kind of putting the team on his back. And I don't, after paying a little bit closer attention, I don't believe that. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that. The more I watch the guy, the more I absolutely agree with you that he just does what he does and just kind of lurches around and is, here's the point. So there was an interview post the Game 6 with him and Kyle Lowry.
Right.
And it was really fascinating. There's a couple things actually from this interview I want to highlight, but to serve this point, I'm going to jump to the end. Reed Forgrave of CBS Sports, I believe, asked the question. This was the last question, actually. He asked Kyle Lowry. He said, "This is a fan base that is fatalistic. Mm-hmm. Basically, they always expect the worst outcome of things." But he said, "But do you feel things have flipped? That you're not just offering this team? That you're not just affecting this team, but you're affecting the city." Mm-hmm. And so then this was an interesting question, because this is obviously leading to the idea of, is Kawhi going to stay? What are Kawhi's feelings about the city, et cetera? Kawhi's sitting to Kyle Lowry's right. They were splitting questions, and this one was given to Kyle Lowry. His response was, "We go out and play extremely hard, try our hardest. And we've got great fans. They support us through good times and bad times. Right now is a great time, and we're glad that there are fans." Then immediately, there's a brief pause. Then he immediately goes, "Come on, Kawhi," and they just get up and they leave. Now, what I thought was so telling is that this is, okay, it's the end of the interview, whatever. He answered the question, and maybe it was a question that was whatever. But what I thought was so telling was that he had to look at Kawhi Leonard and say, "Come on, Kawhi." Like Kawhi's his little buddy. Yeah. Basically take him by the hand and get him. And Kawhi doesn't say, he says, "Oh, okay," and gets up and walks away.
Right.
That's not a leader. This is not somebody who takes full responsibility for the weight of their actions in the world and is willing to step in to a role and take on a team and say, "I'm going to carry you, follow me." This is a lurch.
Yeah.
This is just a guy, like you said, this is just a guy who happens to be good at something, but he has no real direction. I don't think he's pulling. I don't think that he's pulling the strings. I don't think that he's making those decisions.
Right.
The more you watch him, and when they came in, by the way, Kyle Lowry's holding, the trophy, the championship trophy, and they come in and he's leaning behind the trophy and he's totally whispering to Kawhi Leonard. What in my mind seems like, and this is an assumption, but when you watch the interview, it's very odd. He's coaching him. Basically like, "Okay, so what we're going to do?" Like Kawhi Leonard has never been interviewed before. Like he's never.
Right.
I mean, we just talked about it. He's been in the league for like 7 years.
Yeah. He's clearly uncomfortable.
He's been an MVP of the finals.
Right.
He's won championships. What is this relationship?
Right.
This guy's never even seen a finals court. this guy has, and this guy's directing him?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, and I think that, Kawhi's never been comfortable in those situations, clearly. Never has. But I think, and again, it's interesting how he didn't answer the question, because it's just so clear. And I almost feel bad for the good folks in Toronto. I mean, there's good people up there. I've done a lot of business up there. I've seen, I know how thrilled they are. There's a great San Antonio connection in Toronto. Cito Gaston, the head coach, is from here. Or there was the head coach of the Toronto Blue Jays, is from here. And I feel like when I talk to those people up there, so we do, if it's San Antonio, we deal with them. They're very excited, and they may win a championship,
right?
But they're going to be frustrated, and they're going to be hurt by it, and they're going to say, "We love you, and we cared for you, and we accepted you, and we all this kind of stuff." And I go back to the fact that, you know what, Jerry Seinfeld says you worship the laundry, and that's it. He came up, he put on the jersey, and all of a sudden he became a hero. And they may win the championship, or they may beat Golden State. I don't think it's going to happen, but they may beat Golden State and they win the championship. And then he's going to ride off in the sunset.
Right.
He's going to be the hero, and he's going to ride off in the sunset all the way west to LA. And it's going to be kind of sad, but they'll have their championship. And he's a mercenary who came in. He's the assassin you hire to come in and do that kind of stuff. Then he's going to go and take off.
Right.
So I don't know. Hey, it could all blow up. We could all be wrong. You know what? Uncle Dennis may like the Great North. I don't know, Great Wide North, and then they all stay there, or his sister, or everything like whoever is making the decisions. But the point is, it ain't Kawhi Leonard.
Right. I agree. It's
There's
not
somebody
Kawhi Leonard.
He's got a Varys from Game of Thrones whispering in his ear and telling him where to go.
That's right. And you know what? When you read the signs, again, because all you can do is observe. You talk about yourself being, a patient observer of sorts. That's all you can do is observe, because you're not going to get real answers.
Right.
But if you observe closely, there's nothing that indicates that he's going to stay there. I mean, like that whole Instagram, mess up yesterday with his sister in the back. Oh, I don't know why they think he's going to stay here or whatever. I mean, and I don't even know that was really a mess up. I mean, I'm sure that was even planned. Who knows?
Calculated.
Yeah. I just, the whole thing is just kind of laughable, because it's cliche. It's like, it's something out of the 80s, or it's like, who...
Yeah, it's like
you're not that cool. Like, you're not that big. You're a good player.
I want to say, and part of me wants to see him in LA.
Sure.
I want to see how do you make this guy marketable?
Yeah.
Now maybe there's a way to do it. Kind of make him marketable, because he's this shy guy. Maybe you do something where he's the strong silent type. I don't know.
Here's the image right now in my head. He's like Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's. Everybody's just having to
everyone's just dragging
puppeteer him around town.
Put some sunglasses on him. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know. Just stand here and smile, Kawhi. Don't say anything.
That's right.
Well, but okay. So spinning forward from that, Thursday night, the NBA Finals will begin.
That's right.
Golden State is Toronto has the home court advantage. They played obviously extremely well at home. Golden State may be without Kevin Durant again.
Which hasn't seemed to matter.
Which just tells me again, and we talked about it last week, how powerful this Golden State team is. Just how complete this team is. And not only that, how much it believes that they believe they're a team of destiny. They're unfazed. They came from behind in the last two games against Portland and won. When they had deficits that they had to overcome. And I'm interested to see. A lot of people say, Toronto's a team of destiny. Kawhi hit that great shot against the 76ers, and he did. They came back from 2-0 down against Milwaukee, and I don't know if Toronto's ready for this. Maybe they are. It will take Kawhi Leonard being supernatural again. But I just think Golden State's just too complete, and they're also just not afraid of you.
Yeah. Well, and this is not new.
Right.
This is not new to them. Now, what I will say, what I did think was interesting is that as part of that interview, somebody brought up, what do you think? You guys have been, perennially one of the best teams in the East, if not the best team in the East for the last 6 years, Toronto. What do you think has happened to get you finally over the hump into the game? And of course, Kyle Lowry's kind of joking around and just keeps side glancing in Kawhi's direction, alluding that that's what it was. And then, he later, after talking and saying some nice things about Kawhi, casually mentions, and we got some other guys that have been there that kind of help us out. Danny Green, Marc Gasol,
sure.
And so when you look at that, I think you got to pay attention and be aware to who's really getting you there. I mean,
right.
It wasn't, I think game four, Kawhi Leonard only had 19 points.
Yeah.
So, you've got some other really, one of the things that really hurt the Spurs this year was not having Danny Green. It wasn't just Kawhi Leonard. Not having Danny Green defensively and for threes was major.
Right.
Even that would have been, a whole different team.
Sure.
So they do have some players that have been there, but you're right. I still think that there's the players that haven't been there that are not going to know how to handle those situations. And depending on how heavy they can lean on the players that have will determine how they respond to that. Here's my prediction. I think that Golden State is going to be Golden State. Here's what I would like to see, I guess. Maybe not less of a prediction and more of a fantasy is that, it's kind of a bloodbath, and then Kevin Durant comes back and just takes over.
Yeah, it could be.
Just takes over Kawhi, takes over just basically nullifies that, and then they run away with it.
Right.
I'd like to see that. I think that'd be fun.
And it'd also be Kevin Durant's swan song, too.
Yeah,
in Golden State.
Exactly.
He's gone as well.
Exactly. I don't know that it's going to necessarily even come to that for Golden State. I don't know that they're even going to need that kind of a heroic save.
Right.
But it'd be kind of fun if they did.
So you've got Golden State winning in...
I want to say 5. I'm going to say 6.
6. I'll say, you know what? I'll agree with that. I'll say Golden State in 6.
In 6.
And the last thing before we say goodnight, Marc Gasol, it's a great thing you bring up Marc Gasol. The Memphis Grizzlies put on Twitter, hey, we're always behind you. Good luck in the finals. Basically something along those lines. Spurs didn't do that
right.
for Kawhi. But I thought that was a very classy move by Memphis
to
do that because Marc Gasol, he deserved his shot. He wasn't going to get him in Memphis.
Right.
And they love that guy there. They love him. And
he put them on the map too.
He did. And I think that's one of those things that was just really kind of cool to see Memphis reach out and say, so I root for Marc Gasol in this because he's been a class player for a long time.
Right.
And he's been a great player. And so, but I think Golden State wins this thing with or without Kevin Durant. I just think they're just been there, done that. They're not afraid. And I think they also see this door closing on this era for Golden State. They're going to lose a lot of star power during the offseason.
Sure.
So that's I'll go with you on that. Golden State in 6.
I agree. All right, we're going to wrap this up because we actually we went over the allotted time we usually like to go. I think
John Wick took us
took us over.
The best athlete of this entire discussion.
That's right.
Keanu Reeves.
Forget Kawhi Leonard. Get Keanu Reeves.
You talk about a guy who could shoot. That's John Wick guy. He can shoot.
That's right. He can hit it from the outside, the inside, from the roof.
Hit a couple of 3-pointers. Bam, bam, bam. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, guys. This has been episode 17. Wow. Of What's Brewing Sports.
The Dizzy Dean episode.
That's right. Thanks again, guys, so much for listening to us. This will actually be the last episode for 2 weeks. We are going to go on a brief hiatus. Because actually Ryan Oliver, Richard's son, my brother-in-law, is getting married this weekend. And so we will be celebrating with him, and we will take the weekend off to observe that.
What you're saying is we'll be in no condition.
That's right. We'll probably be in...
That's what you're saying. We'll be in no condition to talk about sports.
That's right. We will be What Is Brewing this weekend.
Indeed so. And nothing will be drinking more than my checkbook. Let me tell you.
That's right. Well, everybody else's bank account will be drinking yours.
That's exactly right. Yay! Woo!
Right on, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to What's Brewing Sports. We'll see you next time. Take care.